Hi, I'm Christiane. What's your name? Thank you. I knew, Jenny, I could count on you. No, I'm like doing a stand-up routine. So my name's Christiane, and I've lived in the Valley for about 14 years, so a lot of you know me in different circles. Maybe a singer-songwriter, maybe a yoga teacher, maybe a mom. A lot of people know me by who my children are, and an outdoor educator who's been in the Forest Service, the Park Service here, and the last 6 years with the Whitefish Trail System doing education. But I'm here to talk to you about something I'm a little more new at, and that is nature therapy. And I got a certificate as a nature therapy guide about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And it was a pretty intense training. And so I'm here today to do your body component of the workshop, and you're probably thinking, what does nature therapy have to do with the body? But it has everything to do with the body. So deep in the senses, what we try to do in nature therapy is get people out of their thinking, mulling, being in the past and being in the future, and drop into the present moment through the senses in nature. So getting the benefits that nature provides that we'll talk about. So I'm going to talk about how I got here and what nature therapy is and its benefits. And then we're going to talk about some of its practical applications to our overall, all the layers of our health and our connection with the land, and also, more importantly, how it can maybe possibly connect and relate to avalanche awareness and backcountry safety. So before we move on, I'm going to ask you to participate in a quick activity to actually just drop into our senses. I'm like super nervous, my heart's racing, and you're all just getting settled into the day, so let's do something if you're willing. And what I want you to do is just put down distractions. If you're looking at your phone, don't. And just settle into your seat and see if you can kind of be still. I know that's hard for a lot of people, but just sit still and maybe gaze up here at this photo I took of some pretty ice over some rocks. And let your gaze just settle there and see what you notice. And while you're looking there, without moving your eyes, I want you to start to take in the periphery around you. Just notice any lights, any shapes. Take in the whole environment, and maybe soften your gaze where you unfocus and you take in the room. And then I invite you to close your eyes. And maybe notice what images are still imprinted there, and notice the back of your eyelids. And bring your awareness a little deeper, straight to your breath. And feel the inhales and exhales. If you're breathing through your nose, great. If that's stuffy, breathe through your mouth and feel the air cool on the way in and feel it warm on the way out. On an exhale, I want you to see if you can just sink all your weight into the seat. On another exhale, or if you're standing, into your feet. On another exhale, I want you to soften anywhere in the body that you might be holding tension, your jaw, your eyes, your shoulders, your tummy. Let everything go soft. Let everything be weighted. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your hands where they rest. And then I want you to notice each sound that you hear inside the room, one by one. And bring your awareness a little deeper. Maybe you can feel your heart beating. Maybe you want to put your hand on your chest and feel it, or maybe you can feel your pulse somewhere in the body. And drop into that stillness. And when you're ready, I want you to just gently open the eyes and let the light in first. And then take in the periphery, take the surrounding in, and then bring your focus back to this image. And I'm going to ask you, how do you feel? On a scale of thumbs up to thumbs down, how was that experience? Some thumbs up, I can't see very well. And if you had a thumbs up and you're like, that was great, I want more of that, or I like doing that, good. If you're like, good, congratulations. But also maybe that's something to just without judgment inspect. Why is slowing down hard? Why is it hard? Why do I feel weird closing my eyes in a group? That's stuff to kind of think about. But I just want to point out, Mary Oliver is going to come up through all of this. I'm also a poet. But she, in her poem, The Moth, said that if you notice anything, it leads you to notice more and more. So just noticing if you drop into your heartbeat, your breath, the sounds, you just start to open up to a lot more than if you're just stuck in thinking and doing, right? All right, so my story, my childhood began in mid-Michigan. If I could show you on the mitten, right here in suburbia. Thank you. I grew up in a mitten, so I love winter. And the lake shores of Lake Michigan up here at a family cottage. And so my childhood nature connection was like free range. I grew up in the 80s. We biked to the creek without helmets. We were out there all day getting dirty. We built forts. We made mud pies. Like, it was so free. And my childhood was so pivotal in that aspect because nature wasn't like this achievement. My parents didn't push me to go big. They just were like, go out, get out of here. And it sparked my imagination, my curiosity, my play. But most importantly, I actually experienced some child abuse and trauma. And nature was a place that I'm telling you, like, as a little kid, I would go sit on a tree branch, sit on the beach, and just like be alone without being alone. And I felt sanctuary, and I felt safe and nurtured and understood in a weird way. And I loved nature so much that when I got to college, I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I wanted to be in nature, and I wanted to connect people to nature. So I found my way into Michigan State University, and I'm a Spartan, and I got a degree in Parks and Recreation with an emphasis in interpretation. Interpretation is a form of communication and education that helps, like, particularly non-captive audiences engage with a subject so that they feel an emotional and intellectual connection. So I love doing that. I also got a master's degree in environmental education from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, but I never went to school there. I was on a traveling program that we lived by a bus, and we traveled different regions and camped every night and lived in an intentional community. And we lived out and learned on the land and from the people. And that sounds really romantic, but it was actually really hard. No hot showers, no warm beds for months. And so that was pivotal to me. I've been working, as she said, as an outdoor educator for several years, and everywhere I've went has nudged me. Science schools, nonprofits, government, camps, you name it. I've done it all, and now I've been here about 13 years and really connect with the land here and love it. But something happened about 11 years ago, I became a mom, and motherhood just throws everything upheaval. And talk about triggers, right? Like, kids trigger me, and a few things happen becoming a mom. One is I had really bad postpartum anxiety and depression. A lot of childhood trauma came up I had to deal with. Had to be a better person because now I have little humans, right? So I really realized that mindfulness practice is something, it's called a practice because I'm not really good at it. Like, I have to do it to be a better person. Another thing happened was my daughter, my first child, came with this intensity, and neurodiversity is real. Like, we're a product of our environments, but we are also like these neurological people that like experience life differently. And she taught me that. That's real. And then the third thing is, like, my circle of adventure got smaller. But by getting smaller, it also got greater. Because kids, I'll be like, look at the mountain, look at the waterfall. And here's my 2-year-old, like, look at this ant, and like, touch this, mom, and like, look up close at this. And it's so cool that kids are so curious and so imaginative. And so it kind of has come full circle where the past like 5 or so years, I'm like, okay, what do kids need? I work with kids, so I'm like, they really need to like step out of like achieving and academia and like physical prowess, and they need to be creative. And I want to get kids back to the 1980s a little bit, like my childhood. I mean, I think helmets are a good idea, but like, let's play and get dirty for no other reason than for fun and creativity. And the pride I see in these kids and the enjoyment to go back to their creations in the woods, it's amazing. So I want to do that. And I also want to provide kids who need a sanctuary in nature, where they're not judged, they just get to be free. And here's the kicker, are you ready? I want to do that for adults too. So we need to do that too. So I want to ask you, think about your childhood. Sorry, I don't like using a microphone, I like to shout. So think about your adulthood, or childhood and adulthood, and what's winter like? Because we're here talking about winter. Winter is this like amazing sensory experience. Just shout out something that comes up as a child stepping out into the snow. What is it like? What'd you say, magic? Sparkly, yes, someone said it. I was like, someone's going to say sparkly. Sparkly, what else? Quiet, thank you, it's so quiet. I love cross-country skiing because it's so quiet, and life can be so loud. What else? I heard something over here. Frostbite, yeah, it's cold, like, right? Like, it's like survival out there, so it's cold, it's quiet, sparkly. And so basically when you're out in the winter, it's the sensory experience. And when you touch one thing with great awareness, you touch everything. So let's talk about how being in nature and being in these elements can really impact us. So what is forest and nature therapy? It has roots in Shinrin Yoku. Shinrin Roku comes from from Japan. In the 1980s, there was this big societal shift of people from agricultural living into cities, and with that was a spike in, guess what? Health problems, stress-related, heart disease, and the government was like, what's happening to our people? Let's study this. Amazing. And so one thing they found was they did a study on time in nature, slowing down in nature, and they found medical benefits that they could prove. Lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, lower cortisol, stress hormones went down, and people just were more relaxed. And something cool that came out of it too, it's called forest bathing, and that's what it literally translates to, because trees and plants are always giving off chemicals to protect themselves from invasion, to talk to their neighbors, and when we're out in it, we absorb it, and we've evolved with nature, so it boosts our immune system. There's a boost in our killer white blood cells. So amazing, right? I mean, I think we all know it's good for us, but that's pretty scientific. So forest therapy is, we want to get people in their senses. I call it a sensory immersion, and we slow people down, which can be really hard in our society. And we do a series of invitations. There's a structural procedure to this where we start by getting people into their bodies and minds, and then we go off and invite them to do invitations where we go out and come back. They can be 10 to 20 minutes long, and we invite them to do something very simple and sensory. And we call it an invitation because if they end up doing something else, great, that's what they need to be doing. We trust that the person's gonna be autonomous, figure it out for themselves. We trust that the forest is a therapist. I am not a therapist. We have a saying, I studied with the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and the saying was, the forest is a therapist, the guide opens the door. So I'm trying to get people to slow down and open themselves to be receptive and chill out and have all these benefits happen. And the invitations, I don't want to get people in their head. I'll get there in a minute, but it's a small gathering. We usually like to keep it small so that we can have an intimate experience, and people get to come back and share. And the guide will give them a prompt after each invitation, and people, if they want to share, they can. And that's a way of being witnessed and being held in this really unique experience, but it's also a way of active listening, something we also need in our culture, of not having to fix anything, not having to give input, just listening. That's it. And then they go out and do some more, and it's inclusive, it's accessible, meaning we try not to make it where you have to be a good hiker or really physically fit. It's accessible to all, very inclusive, and it's trauma-informed and non-prescriptive. And by what I mean by that is that we recognize that people have trauma, and we trust that nature and that person are gonna meet in this open, receptive state, and whatever is gonna need to happen will happen for them. And their body, and they're gonna have the ability to go as deep as they want. I've done a lot of it, and sometimes grief does come up. Sometimes I find myself doing something I haven't done in so long, and you just go out there and you're sent on a mission to be in your senses, and amazing things can happen. Yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say about that. Let me see if I missed anything. So 3 hours long might sound long or short, depending. It could be longer, could be shorter, but 3 hours is what the association I studied with kind of feels like people need to really get there, slow down and then just kind of open up into liminality, between worlds, where you lose time, you forget about the news, you let it go, and you become a child again, I'm telling you. So let's list the benefits real quick. I'm looking at my clock. Oh, good. The benefits are many, and what I want you to do, there's gonna be a long list, and I'm sure I'm not getting them all, but I want you to think and look at this list as I go through it, and think about what might apply to you as either an outdoor. I know you all love nature. I know you all love being out in nature. But what might apply directly to avalanche awareness and safety in the backcountry? What benefits could cross over into it? So let's look. All right. Leads to mental clarity and focus. Right? We're so distracted all the time. This is brings it straight into focus. Heightens creativity, imagination, and insight. Some of the greatest thinkers got their insight when sitting under a tree. Anybody know who I mean? Okay. Enhances mood and well-being. Regulates the nervous system, lowers heart rate and blood pressure, boosts the immune system. Remember those phytoncides, those chemicals that plants are giving off. Enhances the sense of belonging, whether it's in the small circle of people, whether it's in the whole world. It encourages mindfulness and presence, being present in the moment. It improves attention. It leads to moments of wonder and awe, combats anxiety and depression, accesses our intuition. Ooh, creates reciprocity with the natural world, that connection of we have a relationship, guides us into timelessness and liminality, lowers release of stress hormones like cortisol, lowers that, offers general relaxation, steps us out of doing it and into being, builds a sense of community, returns us to feelings of wholeness. So just little forgotten parts of ourselves. Like people are always like, oh my God, I just like had childhood flashbacks and like all this stuff. Like we are bodies. We are not just brains, and we have a wholeness to us. And so we're not trying to fix people. We're just trying to get people to remember that. Nature bathing, forest bathing can increase sense of interconnectedness and improve listening and communication skills. Raise your hand if you see one thing on that list that might apply to backcountry travel, working with buddies, being safe, being aware, being in the moment, right? Yeah, you see some. I know you do. All right, so here's a picture of a little altar some people made on a recent retreat day I did where we forest bathed in the afternoon or did some nature therapy. And Mary Oliver, in her essays Upstream, said, attention is the beginning of devotion. So I love this because it makes me think of like when you're truly paying attention to little things and stepping into your body, it's a way of like saying, I love you to nature. Raise your hand if you love it. You love it, right? You love the mountains, you love the snow, you love it. So pay attention, and that's a way of devotion. And I came across this article by a guy named Mark Esperos in the Center Post. And I love this, so I'm just gonna read it to you. How we attend to the moments in our days reminds us that we belong to everything, and that we are responsible to it all, which is to say we're able to respond to the place where we are. And how? By attending to the moments, by opening ourselves to notice, even share some small particular glimpse of things, each of which, with us, belongs to everything else. That is part of the tapestry of space and time we call life. Trusting in it, delighting in it, is another way to speak of faith. All right, so what can we do? What can we do? Because mindfulness is a practice, and forest bathing is kind of a type of, nature therapy is kind of a type of mindfulness. What can we do in our day-to-day, or even when we're out there, that will directly apply to our time and safety and our awareness? Notice your breath and feel your heartbeat. Oh my gosh. Before I yell at my kid, take a breath, ooh. Before I like scream when I'm driving the car, feel my heartbeat, take a breath. Like the heart is connected to our breath. Everything's connected to our breath. If you slow down your breath and pay attention to your breath, everything else follows suit. So don't forget that. Before you drop into that bowl, take a deep breath. Before, you go out there, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. Some mindfulness practices, anything you can do at home. Oh my gosh, like I have become such a better person by doing things like being on my yoga mat, like translates into like the meeting I have at work, So stretch, feel your body, do any kind of yoga. There's so many different kinds of yoga you can do. Breath work, focusing on your breath. You can look up pranayama or breath work on the internet and find some practices. Qigong, Tai Chi, meditation, forest bathing. Come join me. Engage the senses. I use snow as an example, but this could be anything. Like today, I was looking at the slide, and my cat, like really wanted attention, was purring, and I'm like, but then I was like, oh, smell the cat. I didn't taste the cat. Touch the cat. I listened. I heard his purring. And I just spent a minute really like, okay, I'm going to do this with the cat. Could be snow, could be this hoarfrost, it could be a tree, it could be the wind, it could be the sun. And I forgot to mention, in forest therapy, we work with nature. The guide is out there, and like if it's a windy day, if we're near a creek, if it's raining, if it's sunny, we are going to play off of that. And some of the invitations I send you will be to go explore with your senses. So for an example, I might be like, go and lay on the grass and watch the clouds. That's it. Go collect textures. Go fill a cup with scents. So that's it. I'm never going to say go find joy and do this, or go deal with your grief, and this is going to help. That's where it's non-prescriptive and trauma-informed. I'm going to give you an invitation to get in your body and bliss out, and whatever comes up is what comes up for you. It's pretty cool. Create a means of communication with nature. This is my idea. Like, this is a little thing I made. I go out in nature, and on my hikes, I gather things, and I make little, like, offerings or bundles, or I just, like, love to leave little offerings, and just an idea of, like, what can you do to express gratitude? I poured my tea out in the river a little bit today. I like do those things because it's like I'm making an act. And there's some power in that, I believe. So offer something, a gesture of reciprocity or gratitude. Mark the thresholds. Let's do this. Create a ceremony. Keep a ritual. Like, what do you do when you step away from the car and you get your skis and you're going? Like, is there something you can stop and do? Is there something to hug a tree, draw a circle in the snow, like pour some tea out? And when you come out safely, maybe there's a moment you need to have. And then the last one is just really slow down. Like, slow down. I think of an emergency situation, right? And like, what's the first thing in first aid or in wilderness first aid you're supposed to do? Something happens. What? Scene safety, check the scene. Oh my God, I know that I'm the one who's like, I'm gonna go save the day. But I need to stop and like make sure it's all cool. And that's like kind of that reminder of slow down. Take a minute to notice, pay attention, feel it. Why? Because taking the time to slow down, being grounded in our bodies, there's my daughter, engage fully with the senses and bring deep presence to the moment can impact our mental and physical health, our decision-making, our communication, and our overall awareness. Helps balance brain wisdom with body wisdom, connects us with the environment in a receptive way, helps us to recover from stress, offers a reprieve from a state of always needing to do and achieve, and we can just simply be. And remember the magic. That's what I want everybody to get, is the magic of our interconnectedness. Thank you. With everything. All right? So practices carry over into our everyday life, including safe backcountry travel and avalanche awareness. So last quote from Mary to end with, instructions for living a life. From sometimes, pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. I want to put in parentheses, live to tell about it, right, for what you all do in the backcountry. So I'm going to leave this up, and I think I have a few minutes for a question or two. So here's my contact info. I do have a website where I will be working on, I have a permit with the Forest Service to have some small gatherings. I will do some retreat days with yoga and forest bathing. So check me out. Follow me on Instagram. I also play music and do some other things. So thank you for having me and for letting me get through that in this wonderful crowd. And be safe, and don't forget the magic, right? Okay, clap or questions? I don't know, thank you. Thank you. Anybody have? Yes. Right. Yeah, slow down is as easy as taking a breath, and that can transfer into all parts of life. And practices like getting out and forest bathing, I know it might sound like, I don't need that. I love nature already. It's like, this is a little different. This is also like a practice of how we react and connect in the world, right? All right, any other questions? Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I'm sure that you'll be happy to just run along. Does what? Oh, thank you, yes. Oh, when they're on skis? Oh, I don't know. Something I love to do when I'm skiing, and maybe some of you do this, is time my turns with breath. And so I would say maybe like carve your turns with the breath, you know? And yeah, and maybe notice something when you're on your skis, like notice something real physical, like either the air on your face or the feeling of your feet in your boots. Good question. That caught me off guard. Later on, I'm going to be like, I have a really good one, so I'll just message you, Blaze, and you can. All right. Anybody else? Right there. Oh, thank you. I have a hard time seeing up here. Yes? Do you have a routine before you go skiing? Well, I'm mostly a front country skier. Well, yeah, I stopped backcountry skiing once I had kids, but gosh, what do I do before I ski? I don't know. The lift ride is just a really good time to and I'm sure hiking up the hill, when I do climb, it's just a really good time to just drop in and look around. So I don't know. That's a really good question. Gosh, you guys are good and smart. Yeah, taking the lift ride to just breathe and be in my body and check out the view. And the conditions, is it a 1 seat ahead of you kind of fog, or is it a 2 seat ahead of you? Anybody else? Okay. Oh, I see somebody up there. Oh, they're pointing at someone else. Yes. Fun. Where did you do your school to become an nature therapist? Okay, so who I studied with, there's a couple different organizations. I did the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. Association, ANFT. It's right down here. Sorry, I forgot to point it out. It's right down here And it was like a 6-month course, and you had to do an immersion with them, and I did mine in Canmore area. And it was pretty intense, lots of homework, but it was fun. Thanks for asking. All right. Have a great time, and thanks for having me. I appreciate you all so much. Be safe.